What a victory by the New York Mets. A day after clinching a playoff berth, they could have rested on their laurels, but no. Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor delivered two incredible home runs. Pete's a 3-run shot as the Mets were trailing 4-0. Lindor's a grand slam to give the Mets a lead, and they come back to beat a team that's fighting for a playoff spot themselves in the Brewers. It's a good team, and the Mets are showing out on this audio-only edition of Locked On Mets. I'll be discussing the game. I'll also discuss Carlos Carrasco versus Taijuan Walker, who should start a playoff game, and then we'll close out the show. Darin Ruf versus Mark Vientos. A lot of battles down the stretch as the Mets try to get ready for October. That is all on this edition of Locked On Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're listening to Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Locked On Mets is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Well, if you thought there'd be any let-up after the Mets clinched a playoff berth and had their subdued celebration, you would be dead wrong. The New York Mets just had a remarkable victory that we get to discuss on the show today, coming back to beat the Brewers to continue what is now a 6-game winning streak on the show. We're going to go through that game, of course, to start things off. In the second segment, though, I want to discuss Carlos Carrasco versus Taijuan Walker because Carrasco, not the best outing, and it is a pretty interesting conversation who should get the ball as a Game 4 starter in the playoffs. Then we're going to close out the show today with what I think is another interesting battle down the stretch here. Mark Vientos, is he ahead of Darin Ruf now when it comes to being the right-handed half of that DH platoon? Seems like right now he's getting an audition for that role for the playoffs. Before we get to any of that, though, I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter, @FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Now, Carlos Carrasco, not the best outing in this one, and I can see why you thought there might be a little bit of let-up in this Mets team. You look at the first 5 innings, the Mets were losing 4-0, and Carrasco got knocked around in that second inning, giving up 3 runs, a couple of doubles, ultimately giving up, I think it was 4 hits in that inning. It was a pair of doubles. You had Colton Wong and Andrew McCutchen to lead the inning off. Carrasco gets a strikeout, but then he gives up a base hit that scores a run. Then he gave up another hit later on in the inning after walking the batter with 2 outs, gave up a hit to Willy Adames that scored the 3rd run of the inning. And he was knocked out of the game after 4 innings. Through 90 pitches in 4 innings, Trevor Williams comes on. He gives up that run in the 5th. And then later on, Adam Ottavino gave up a run in the 8th. But we'll go right there. You look at the first 5 innings, Mets are losing 4-0, and you think, all right, here we go. The let-up is here. The Mets are playing a good team in the Brewers. The Braves are just shellacking the Nationals as always, even though it actually was a close game. But you just expect the Braves to sweep the Nats, and you think, okay, well, as much as we want to celebrate clinching the playoff berth, here's the division slipping through your fingers. I know that is what the pessimistic Mets fans were thinking. Personally, I don't have any quit in this Mets team. I really don't. And so in that spot, even if I wasn't entirely convinced that they were going to win tonight, I still have faith that they're going to find a way to win this division. And it certainly feels like a winning position to have after what we watched in the 6th and the 7th inning. Because to me, Pete Alonso's at-bats have been so much better. I did a podcast last week where I talked about how Pete Alonso has to carry this team to the finish line, and I should have looped Francisco Lindor into that conversation. These are the guys that have gotten you here. You have 2 superstars on this team, and Jeff McNeil, honestly, is a damn good player as well. I think some people would think it's crazy to say he's a top 20 position player in baseball. I don't. And I really look at those 3 guys and think that's what makes this team special. But we really see that in this 6th inning, no quit in this team. Mark Canha gets hit by a pitch after Brandon Nimmo flew out to lead things off. Francisco Lindor gets a knock, so you have 2 runners on, and Pete Alonso delivers yet again. 37th home run of the season, cuts the deficit to just 1 run, and then in the following inning, in the 7th, once again, we see one of those superstars come through, and it was a lot of walks to load the bases, so thank you to the Brewers for loading them up. Darin Ruf drew a walk, James McCann drew a walk, Brandon Nimmo drew a walk. I think I just said Wolf there. You got to excuse me, I'm still on vacation, Can't be perfect. Also, I do have to note, my mic broke. So, if the sound isn't as crispy as always, hey, I'm recording on a phone for the rest of the week, but I give you Locked On Mets every single day. It is your team every day, and we deliver even on vacation. So, regardless though, removing myself from that self-indulgent note, the bases were juiced. Mark Canha strikes out, so 2-out spot. Here comes Francisco Lindor, and he delivers his 25th home run of the season, a grand salami. Suddenly, the New York Mets go from down to up, and they were previously down 4-0 to suddenly up by 3, and Lindor hits that home run. Suddenly, you start to feel the magic again in this team, don't you? You start to get that sense, get that vibe, and a 6-game winning streak isn't as impressive on the front end of it when you're talking about sweeping the Pirates. But when you go out and win 2 against a team in the Brewers that's fighting for a playoff berth, that means something. And now Francisco Lindor, sitting on 99 RBIs, could be his first 100 RBI season of his career. Pete Alonso sitting at 121, by the way, with his cool 37 home runs. So these guys continue to be the engine of this team, and it drove the Mets to a victory here. It's just that simple. It's crazy to look at the box score. If you're a Brewers fan, you got to be livid. Here's a team in the Brewers that go 5 for 13 with runners in scoring position. They out-hit the Mets 11-4. And yet, the Mets win the game. Only 4 hits in this one, but those 2 home runs count big. 5 walks, and the Mets just cashed in. 2 for 5 with runners in scoring position. They did enough, and you have to credit them for coming through yet again against this team. And now you got an opportunity to sweep the Brewers. Then the schedule lightens up for you. You have a day off on Thursday. You got 3 against the A's. Next week, day off on Monday. 2-game set at home against the Marlins. Day off on Thursday. And then your season against the Braves, that really incredible series that I cannot wait to be at. We'll see if the Mets have a chance to clinch, but you're starting to feel more confident again in what this team can continue to build on. And you don't want to get too far out ahead of it. You don't want to jinx anything or look and try to put too much pressure on the Mets. But you win this game, you get the sweep. You're starting to dream about what you could do leading into that series against the Braves to really put the pressure on them. And again, we'll mention this on every show until the series happens this weekend, but Phillies, Braves in Philadelphia, 4-game set. You'll have never seen so many Mets fans rooting for the Phillies than they will be this upcoming weekend. It's as good as it gets right now. This is a division race to behold, and we don't get them this way this often. So appreciate a season like this when it's in front of you. This is the type of baseball that you got to tune in every single night to keep up with. And tomorrow in the afternoon, it'll be Taijuan Walker. So we'll see how he fares because he's fighting for a spot in the playoff rotation. And that's what I will discuss in just a minute. But first, the summer is winding down. The nights are getting longer, but the breeze isn't the only thing that's getting stiff. That's right, this episode is sponsored by Blue Chew. Guys, we all know that confidence can take you far in life. That's especially true in the bedroom, especially when it's time to step up to the plate, and that's where Blue Chew comes in. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable tablets at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. The process is simple. All you have to do is sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical professionals, and once you're approved, You'll receive your prescription within days. The best part, it is all done online. So no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared to ship direct to your door in a discreet package. With Blue Chew, men everywhere are excited to see the postman because when your package has arrived, your package has arrived. So if you could benefit from some extra confidence when it's time to perform, chew it and do it. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew for free. We use our promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. Just pay the $5 shipping. Again, that's at bluechew.com, promo code LOCKEDON to receive your first month for free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast. Carlos Carrasco versus Taijuan Walker. What's really compelling about this discussion here is each guy has their merits. Carlos Carrasco, I can make the argument that he has been better in certain spots this year. He has delivered the big-time performances. I think about the doubleheader against the Braves where he had the complete game. He's been a winner, and he is leading the team in wins, 15 wins. I always think, is Chris Bassett more than that? Because Bassett seems to have been gaining on him all season, but I think he's at 14, right? Yeah, 14 wins for Bassett. Taijuan is at 12, if I'm not mistaken, and now the Scherzer got into double digits as well, so the Mets have 4 starting pitchers who have won at least 10 games, and I don't think that you look at it simply as, oh yeah, well, Carrasco has more wins than Taijuan, he should get the nod. That's not the case, but he certainly has been really impressive. He has a little more experience. He's the veteran. I can see the merits of going Carrasco, and I think Taijuan Walker will be in the bullpen, so he's going to be the break glass in case of emergency guy, I think. But if Taijuan can go out and try to win this, you never know. I mean, he has been really solid this year, and you look at the month, and he gave up 4 against the Pittsburgh Pirates on September 6th, a 5-inning outing. But since then, 7 against the Marlins, allowed just 1 earned run, 10 strikeouts. Then he goes 7 1/3 against the Pirates, gives up 3 runs, 2 of them earned, gave up that home run, obviously, that ended up being the death nail for him and removed him from the game. But I don't know where the Mets go here. I think Carrasco is still the answer, but if Carrasco has a couple stinkers down the stretch, this obviously was not his best effort. If he goes out and he pitches poorly the next time and Taijuan goes and pitches against this exact same Brewers team that Carrasco struggled with and carves and goes 7 innings and doesn't give up a run, it's going to make the Mets at least think about it. And I think if we're trying to project forward, it's hard to know exactly where they go. I think if this was based on percentages, what I think is more likely, I would say it's probably 70-30 in Carrasco's favor. But if Taijuan delivers against the Brewers, then you have this series over the weekend where the Mets will have their A guys going. Bassett, DeGrom, Scherzer against the A's. Pun intended, I guess. Then, as I already mentioned, you have the off days. That series against the Marlins, it will be Taijuan and Carrasco going. Carrasco, obviously, the first game, then Taijuan. Then you'll have the days off. You'll have the weekend series against the Braves, where it'll once again be Bassett, DeGrom, Scherzer. And then you turn it back around into that series against the Nationals. What do the Mets do there? It would line up to be, again, Carrasco and Walker, depending on the stakes of the game. Bassett would start the final game of the season if they needed to win that one. That gives these guys 2 more starts, one against the A's, one against the Marlins, to earn that playoff spot in the rotation. But that's also not necessarily the competition that you want to face to make that type of a decision. So this is why, as we're going to watch this game on Wednesday afternoon, Taijuan Walker really has some pressure on to deliver, because this is his last chance to prove himself against a better team. Now, the Brewers don't have a great lineup either. They did pretty decent against Carrasco tonight, but it's certainly not the type of lineup that you would face in pivotal playoff series against a Braves, a Dodgers, even a Cardinals. So we'll see. It could also depend on matchups. I'd have to really dive into the numbers. If it is the Cardinals, say, if the Mets were to win the division, how have those guys fared against St. Louis this season? If it's going into a wild card round, if the Mets win that, it's who's going to be your potential game one starter, Carrasco or Walker, against the Dodgers. You might have to go back and see who has been better against that level of competition, against that team. But right now, it really is up for grabs. Like I said, I lean Carrasco, but I think Walker has an opportunity to steal it from him down the stretch here. So we'll see if he can take that job. At the same time, there is a positional battle that I am fascinated by, and that is, can Mark Vientos take Darin Ruff's job down the stretch? It hasn't looked good for Vientos, but I think the at-bats have. I want to discuss that in just a minute, but first, a quick word from our sponsors. Buck Showalter made a very interesting decision tonight, and I do wonder if it was entirely his decision. He goes with Mark Vientos. I don't know if that is a mandate from the front office, if that is even a collaborative decision between the front office and Buck Showalter to say, let's see what this kid can do. And it's unfortunate, as I've discussed on this show before, the Mets blew it when it comes to Mark Vientos. And I don't want to just repeat myself every time I talk about him. And I know there's a few listeners I've heard or I've seen some YouTube comments where, yeah, you say I talk about Vientos every single podcast. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I would say I talk about him about 40% of the podcast. But here's a guy that I really believed in, and I still do believe in, that has the type of power to leave the yard at any time. And when you get into October, that type of power becomes at a premium, because Mark Vientos, right now, he's hitting .056, 105 on base, 18 at-bats. He struck out 8 times, has only drawn 1 walk, only has a single hit. It was an RBI knock, but the results haven't been impressive just yet, okay? I understand that. If you get into a playoff game and Mark Vientos comes up with a runner on in the second inning and he hits a home run, worth his weight in gold. Now, Darin Ruf can do the same thing, but Darin Ruf has been bad, and there was an interview with the media where he basically was explaining how it's the game of baseball. You have to just deal with the results you get, but you continue, and he gave you your cliche, typical professional answer. My problem with it is he looked rattled talking to the media in that spot. There's a lot of eyeballs in New York, and it's not easy to jump right into the race here and be expected to contribute. Now, what does that mean for Mark Vientos, who has to do all that while he's learning on the fly at the big league level at 22 years old? It's a tough task, and that's why I'm frustrated, because I still believe that he has the ceiling to impact the baseball as a DH in a way that just not a lot of guys can. I mean, he has substantial raw power, and so much time was wasted this year on J.D. Davis, and I hate to harp on it again, but this is why I wanted the Mets to trade J.D. Davis this season, or this offseason, I should say, because he was always a square peg that they were trying to fit into a round hole, and now they have a guy that's a little bit similar with his lack of position in Vientos, but someone that has, in my opinion, a much higher ceiling than J.D. Davis, and you just wasted so many at-bats and opportunities on JD this year that could have gone to Vientos, and you would know your answer right now. You wouldn't be force-feeding Vientos at-bats against the left-handed starters you do face down the stretch to try to see if he can be that guy in October. You'd already know if he was capable or not, and now it's just not fair to him because he's playing sporadically, which he's not used to, at this highest level with all the nerves that come with it, and at a time where the scrutiny is at an all-time high. and you just see what's going on with Ruff, now you're expected to slot right in and perform. I think he's capable, but can he do enough down the stretch to supplant a Darin Ruf? I don't know. And what are the Mets' alternatives? There's really not a lot. The only thing I would say, Dom Smith is hitting pretty well in Syracuse. Haven't checked what the splits are when it comes to his results, but he does have reverse splits, at a lot of different points in his career. Do you go Dom? do you go, instead of Vientos and Ruff, do you go Dom to be the guy that starts against lefties as lefty? I know there's very limited few that would agree with that. And my whole point of bringing up Dominic Smith is more to illustrate that there's just no other options. I mean, what else do you go to? You really don't have much. So it will boil down to Vientos and Ruff. Francisco Alvarez is not eligible to join a postseason roster, so don't expect that promotion at the end of the season here. It's got to be one of these two guys, and if Vientos doesn't grab it, I think Ruff gets it by default. But I'm curious to see what other opportunities Vientos will have over the final 2 weeks here to prove himself, because anyone who's been listening to the show knows that I would be thrilled if the net result of this experiment is Mark Vientos is on the playoff roster and Darin Ruf isn't. I'm a big Vientos fan. I would personally love to see it, but I don't think you can really go to that well unless he shows something other than what he has so far, which in my opinion has been good at bats, just not enough results. And 8 strikeouts in 18 at bats, 1 walk. So he struck out eight times out of 19 times he stepped into the box. That's not good. So that's something to monitor. We'll see if he can prove himself. We'll see when he faces another lefty. But regardless, that is one of many things to watch. And on the show tomorrow, while I will discuss the game, I also want to go through things to watch down the stretch. Who should be in the bullpen, the starting rotation battle we just talked about. But there is a lot of layers to the last couple weeks of the season as the Mets not only try to win this division, but to set themselves up for a potential deep playoff run. That's going to be all, though, for today's edition of Locked On Mets. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, @FinkelsteinRyan. Follow the show, @LockedOnMets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by Paul Francis Sullivan. Locked On MLB is where you want to go to stay up to date with everything going on in Major League Baseball. You can follow Locked On MLB wherever you get podcasts.